Welcome to How to Cook That. I'm Reardon and I have a really exciting surprise for you today. Not only am I going to show you how to make this castle cake, but I'm also going to show you my new app. That's right, I made an app just for you. And what you do is you print out your flag and stick it somewhere on top of your castle. Open up the Surprise Cakes app, press here, line up the rectangle with the flag, and check this out. You have 3D fireworks over the top of your castle.
That's so cool.
Once it's locked on the flag, you can move it back and around. As long as the flag is still in view somewhere on the screen, the fireworks show will continue.
Fireworks.
You can even take photos with the birthday girl in the background. You guys were asking for cakes that were simple to make, but still impressive. So with this app, you can stick the flag onto just a cupcake and still surprise your friends. Or how about a chocolate Sydney Harbour Bridge? I'll be adding more animations to the app over time, so go to the App Store or the Google Play Store and get the Surprise Cakes app while it's still on its special launch price, and I'll show you some more footage of it at the end. Now on to making the castle itself. You'll need to make a double batch of the rich chocolate cake recipe on 4 trays and 2 quantities of buttercream. Spread the buttercream between the layers and stack up your cakes. Then you want to trim each side to make the edges nice and straight. The cake and the frosting recipes and tin sizes and all those details are all written on the website howtocookthat.net, and there's a link in the description just below the video. Next, trim off the corners so we have room for our corner towers to sit, and then cover the whole thing in a smooth layer of your frosting. If you place your cake board onto a plate, you'll find that makes it easier to turn the cake as you're coating it because you can get your fingers underneath to help turn it round. Once you've covered it, place the whole thing in the fridge for an hour or so to firm up. Measure the height of the side of your cake, and we want the base of the cones on the top of our towers to sit about 2 centimetres above the height of the cake. Put your mini ice cream cone onto the chocolate bar and line it up with where you measured for the base of the cone to be. Then add a second chocolate bar and trim it to make it the right height. We want 4 towers this height, so cut your other bars to match. Now warm a saucepan on the stovetop and quickly press one end of the chocolate bar onto the base of the hot pan to melt a little bit of the chocolate, then push it onto the other bar to join it together. You can use whatever chocolate bars you like for this as long as they're firm enough to hold their shape when they're cut. Obviously, if you choose lumpy bars, the towers will look lumpy instead of smooth, but that can be a nice customization. Then we also want turrets to go on top of the cake, so trim the remaining chocolate bars to the height that you want those. I'm going to make 2 short ones, 2 medium ones, and 1 taller one to go right in the middle. Roll out your fondant fairly thinly, and if it's sticking to the rolling pin, just put some spray oil onto the rolling pin and rub it on and roll it again. Trim your fondant to match the height of your chocolate bar, and then wrap it up just like you're making a sausage roll. Before it rolls all the way around, trim the excess fondant off and then roll it up and gently push down to seal the ends together. Now find something in your kitchen that has a good skinny rectangle shape and use it to make an indent for the windows. Ice cream cones are perfect for the conical spires on top of the turrets, but if you leave them plain or just put frosting on them, they go stale or soggy. So to keep them crispy and yummy, fill the cones up with compound chocolate and then immediately tip it out. This leaves a nice thin layer all over the inside. Then dip the end into the chocolate and leave it to set on a piece of baking paper, and you'll need 9 of these. Compound chocolate is any chocolate or melts that have vegetable oil in them, so it sets firmly at room temperature without needing to be tempered. Once they're set, cover the outside of the cone in chocolate and leave them again to set. Once they're dry, take some edible purple luster dust and a dry paintbrush and dust it all over the cones to make them shine. Now roll out some dark coloured fondant and trim it to the size of your windows. You'll need 17 of these little rectangles. Then dust those with the same purple luster that we used on the cones. Brush a tiny bit of water into that window cavity and add the dark fondant and gently push it into place. To make the flag, take one of the cones and using a serrated knife, cut the very end of it off and then use the tip of the knife to make sure the hole is big enough for the lollipop stick to fit in. Print out your flag, cut it out, fold it in half, then open it up and add some glue, and then glue it onto the stick. You can colour your flag in and add whatever word you like in the middle. Just make sure your colouring is not too dark or it will make it hard for the app to recognise, so it's probably best just to use pencils. Place your flag into the top of the cone and put that to one side. To make your castle door, roll out some brown fondant and then use a ruler to cut straight sides. Then about 3/4 of the way up, mark a little mark on each side, find the middle at the top and mark that, and then using a pizza cutter curve around to join the 2 marks that you've just made. Then push down in the centre to make it 2 doors. Then use your ruler and a knife to gently indent straight lines. You're not trying to cut through, you're just making an indent so that it looks like planks of wood. Now take your knife and just gently draw the shape for a knot in the wood. Then run a long, slightly curved line around the knot and up to the end. Then make more lines just following the shape of the first one you did, and you have a wood grain pattern on your door. Now take something small and round and make little indents to look like nail holes at the top and bottom of each plank of wood. To make the handles of our door, we're going to roll out some black fondant and use a drinking straw to cut out 2 little circles. Then roll a thin snake, wrap it around the end of your straw and slide it off, and you'll need 2 of those. Then brush them with silver luster dust. Place the circles onto the door just at the right handle height, put a tiny dab of water onto each one, and then add your handles on top and leave that aside to firm up. To make flowers for your cake, you can use a flower plunger cutter like this one. All you do is press the cutter into the fondant and then push on the plunger bit to get the flower out of the cutter. It's nice and it's quick, and if you have a lot of flowers to make, it's worthwhile investing in. Then you can just roll a tiny ball of contrasting colour and place it in the middle of each one. If you don't have a cutter or you only want to make a few flowers, then you can cut 5 circles out using a drinking straw, place them together in a flower shape, and then add the ball of the other colour fondant in the middle, and that looks just as good, it just takes a bit longer. Now for the leaves, cut out a leaf shape from the green fondant and place an indent down the middle and a few little indents along the side. Measure the top of your cake and roll out some pink fondant to be slightly bigger than the cake. Put it on top and smooth the edges over the corners. Now measure the front of your castle, and you want the fondant to overlap into the middle of the corner sections, and you also want it to be slightly taller at the top. Cut the fondant to the right size, and then using a small square cutter, cut pieces out of the top, and I'm using a ruler to keep me straight going along so it's not going up and down. And you can make your own cutters. See the Twitter dessert video for instructions on how to do that. Slide something flexible but firm under your baking paper and use it to help you place the fondant onto the side of your cake smoothly. Then carefully remove your baking paper and wrap the fondant around on the corners of the cake. It doesn't matter if they don't join because our corner towers are going to cover that up anyway. To support the top of the walls while they're setting and keep them nice and straight, wrap some baking paper around some cardboard and support it in place using some toothpicks. Once you've added all of your walls, put a small amount of water onto the corners and add your corner towers. Gently put the door into place, and then make 2 more indents for windows on the front and the sides and the back walls, and then add your darker fondant just like we did on the towers to make the windows stand out. Add some of your cake offcuts around the tower and spread some frosting onto the board and over that cake that you've just added. Then roll out some green fondant and place it over the top, tucking it around the cake bits that you added on. Now take some grey fondant and add a pathway coming out from the front door. If you want it to look a bit like stones, just roll some balls of fondant and squash them and put them into place on the path. Then trim off the excess path, wrapping it around under the board. Add a few more fondant rocks around on the grass and on the edge of the path, and then add your flowers and your leaves just to make it look pretty. Remove your toothpicks and cardboard supports from the top of the cake. Add the cones to the top of each tower and the turrets, and then add the turrets onto the top, pushing them down slightly into the top of the cake. And your cake is ready. Open up the Surprise Cakes app and let the magic begin. Thanks for sharing the video and clicking like. You can put all your cake and 3D app requests in the comments section, and subscribe to see all the latest How to Cook That cakes, desserts and chocolate creations. I'll see you on Friday.